You're listening to Under the Shell Podcast, the best in America.
Welcome to Under the Shell, presented by Testudo Times. I'm Brendan Weissel.
Sam Jane, we're back.
And Michael House.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the fourth season of Under the Shell. It's been 50 days since an episode of Under the Shell was released. Maryland's had one football game, 12 men's basketball games, and 10 women's basketball games. And boy, are we ready to recap them. But before we do, we have a very special guest. Take it away.
Our next guest is freshman quarterback for the University of Maryland. He was a four-star out of Clayton, Delaware, and he threw a 57-yard pass his second play in the Music City Bowl against Auburn and threw a touchdown their right next play. We've got on Cam Edge this week. Cam, welcome on. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me on. Happy to be here.
I guess let's jump right into the Auburn game. So going into it, I assume you knew it was going to be split duties between you and Billy. Kind of what was your mindset heading into that game to kind of showcase yourself?
Just in certain things like that, when it's split time at quarterback, it's probably the hardest position to split time at. You know what I mean? So my whole thing was just to really just have a great week of practice. You know what I mean? We had a extended time to game plan. You know what I mean? Just take each practice and prepare for the game. Kind of did all year, but now you kind of knew you were going to play. And for a while, I didn't know when I was going to get in until we talked about it before the game or like that morning of game day. But just take advantage of every opportunity I get. You know what I mean? You're in a good spot. It couldn't be any better. You know what I mean? You worked for it and just take advantage of every single play.
I know when you kind of have those split duties, I feel like it must be really important to be, have a very good relationship with the person you're doing that with. So just, I kind of always see, you and Billy on the sideline, but talk about kind of your friendship and your relationship with him.
Yeah, we go through a lot of the same things. I mean, everybody knows being a backup quarterback isn't always the funnest thing in the world, but I think everybody that are the best quarterbacks in the world, they've went through it, and it's very valuable to your growth. And I mean, and me and Billy have went through it at the same time and learned behind a really good quarterback in Talia, and like we talk about everything. You know what I mean? We after every play, good, bad, or indifferent, we come to each other and it's about what we saw. We go through the stuff and we spend so much time in the facility and we're always together in the quarterback room that you have to have a good relationship. You know what I mean? Even though we are competing at the end of the day for the same job, it never gets bad. You know what I mean? We joke around with each other a lot and we have a really good time and we help each other a lot in many ways, on and off the field.
Kind of touching on Talia a little bit. Obviously, he set so many records here at Maryland as QB. What was one thing that you learned the most from him?
Just to be a perfectionist. You know what I mean? I think it's something I was kind of born with, and that's how my dad was with me. But Talia is one of those guys where if the ball wasn't in the perfect spot, he was on himself. You know what I mean? I saw that, and I kind of took that. It was kind of already who I was, but just kind of took that, and he just kind of showed me the way that this is what the standard is. You play quarterback here at Maryland, and like he was hard on himself, and we were all hard on ourselves as a group. You know what I mean? But also to kind of like at the end of the day, come together. You know what I mean? There wasn't a guy here that didn't like Talia. Everybody loved Talia. You know what I mean? So just kind of being that guy that everyone kind of gels around and just always chasing perfection. I think that's the biggest thing I took from him, honestly.
In terms of on the field, Cam, obviously at the Music City Bowl, your first like real action, kind of an adjustment, right, with the headset and the helmet.
Absolutely.
Take us through the process, like starting at when the play clock starts, to all the way down. What is coach telling you? What is Gaddis saying? Like, is it all like, yo, look at this defense? Is it just the play? Like, take us through from the minute it starts to the minute it cuts it off.
Well, really, for us, Coach Gaddis did a really, really good job because we got it. We started doing it in practice in the bowl, like kind of introduce it and see what it was. And it would be very easy for a coach to tell us every single thing he sees. But then there's the term coaches use, paralysis by analysis. You know what I mean? Like, you see too much. You got to see a little to see a lot. And, like, coach did a really good job of just, like, telling us to play, giving us just one pointer that we talked about all week in practice. He didn't tell us too much. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, there's 20,000 people there. We got a lot of things to worry about already. He didn't give us too much. He did a really good job with the entire game plan, and he was very, very good talking to us the entire game. And he really just gave us what we needed to talk to, really, when we were on the sideline. I thought it was very smooth with how it went through. And I think it's something that college football should do from here on out. I thought it was awesome. I loved it.
So then on the one big pass play, your first play, was he just like, man, chuck that shit deep? Or did you go in the game and that's the read you saw? Like, how did that feel to get that first completion? What was the process of that play? Did you practice that all week? Like, hey, you got the best arm on the team. Like, go in there and let's take the top off the defense. Or was that a read that you got to?
Yeah, I would say it was a read that we got to. It happened quick. I will say this, like that was a play and that route was thrown a whole lot in practice. And it's something I've been working on for a long time, of course. And it was a really good play. It was actually one of my favorites. I ran it actually in high school. That's kind of why I was pretty comfortable with it and everything. So right when I got the call, we had a really good run on the end around to Ty Felton. And we were kind of in that range around the 50 where I know he kind of likes to take a shot sometimes and stuff like that. So I was like anticipating it, still like trying to get your feet wet, getting in the game and everything. So right when he called it, I was confident. Like I said, I trusted everything he had coached up that week and everything he's taught me all year. And right when I saw the first read and the safety kind of kicked to the middle of the field, I'm like, KP's going to win the route. I knew that was going to happen. So it was pretty good from there.
Yeah, you mentioned high school, so let's take it back to there for a second. I know a lot of people think of you as, people are trying to relate to Cam Edge, like, who is he, right? They talk about how you went to DeMatha. But I know it's not the full story. So can you kind of take us through why you decided to go there and why you decided to leave?
Yeah, with me in Delaware, and it's actually grown a lot in the past couple of years. There wasn't a lot of kids that went Power Five, and my dream was always to be a Power Five kid. And then also, a lot of people don't know I played seventh, and eighth grade football in Maryland with the Maryland Heat. So therefore, your St. John's, the DeMathas, good counsels recruited me through that time. So it was kind of like I decided to go there because I felt like it gave me a better chance to play Power Five. And I still talk to people from DeMatha all the time. You know what I mean? I loved it there. We're 5 minutes from there, so I'm very comfortable in the area and everything. So that was why I went there, and I had an amazing time. If you remember, after that sophomore year is when I ended up going back home for multiple reasons. And the main two were, one, we played in the spring, and my best friends back home were actually a year older than me, were 22s. And I watched them. They played in the fall back home, so I had to go home and watch them because it was during quarantine. And I watched them lose a semifinal game, and on the same field we grew up on, and you know what I mean, home field. And it kind of got emotional for me to watch that, and it kind of just hit me like in a weird way, like wow, I'm not out there with them. You know what I mean? I've up to that time before the math, I had played almost every single game with them. The first time I played a football game ever was with them. So knowing that was a huge part. And then like after that spring year, I was just kind of like, there's a possibility. I talked to certain people where you were hearing certain people were starting to reclass up a year. And I was like, if I was to do that, I'd be able to go home to Smyrna and do that. I wouldn't be able to do it at the Matha. So I thought that was kind of a possibility. It wasn't what I was leaning on right away, but it was a thought in my mind at that time. And I thought like, if I go home, I can do this and kind of not be selfish. You know what I mean? I could go home and play for my town and play with my friends. You know what I mean? Because once you go to college, you gotta do what's best for you at that point.
So then, kind of speaking about your college decision, you had offers from Michigan State, Cincinnati, NC State, ended up coming to Maryland. How was that all process? What did Maryland do on your recruiting trip? What kind of made you finalize it and choose Maryland?
Yeah, for me, it was when I really decided that I was going to reclass up, and I was just like, I don't think there's a better place to leave high school a year early than going to the place that was the first Power Five school to offer you, is an hour and 30 away from home, right where you used to live, basically for 2 years, almost 3 years, because I've been going over here since seventh, eighth grade at that time for youth football. So I was like, and on top of that, I just don't believe there's too many people that develop quarterbacks better than Coach Loxley's system here. It's been proven and said every year he does a really good job with his quarterbacks, and it'll continue to be that way before and after me. You know what I mean? So that's kind of what went into it. I kind of had like a selection of schools I'd go to if I didn't reclass up, and then a selection of schools that I would go to if I did. And Maryland, honestly, was in the forefront for both of those. But when it came to reclassing up, they were easily number one. And I just felt very comfortable because you also got to remember there were so many people on staff at that time that either have been recruiting me for a long time or even tried to recruit me to go to the DeMatha. at one point. So that's why I was just very comfortable with everybody around here, the area, and I just knew the offense was going to fit me and how I play the game.
I
What
mean,
did
you had offers from Pittsburgh, LSU, Penn State. What was the best recruiting trip or like the craziest recruiting story you have, maybe outside of Maryland?
Outside of Maryland, I would say my craziest like recruiting story was ninth grade, I believe, a couple weeks after LSU had won the national championship. The I had went home. I had got a morning early in the morning from Wisconsin, and I was going back home from DeMatha to Smyrna, Delaware. And when I got home, I fell asleep, was really tired and everything. And I get a call from Coach McGregor, said one of the best people on this earth. And Coach McGregor helped me out with a lot of things. He sent me a text like, "Hey, call this number." And like when someone shares a contact to you, you can see what they have them say. And it just said Coach O. And I was like, "There's no way, there's no way." And I called him, and everybody talks about the voice, and I was just kind of shook. You know what I mean? And he was telling me about the story with Joe Burrow and all the crawfish and everything like that, and told me he gave me a full scholarship and everything. And that was probably the craziest because like I was 15 years old and didn't have a whole lot of. I had UMass, Maryland, and Wisconsin at the time. I didn't think LSU, who just won a national championship, was going to offer me that time. That's kind of when it kind of like jump started and kind of hit me. That was probably my biggest story at that point.
Give us your best Coach O impression.
Ah, it, I couldn't do it. It wouldn't be very good. He was like I said, the whole time is like I could hear, I understood what he was saying, but I was just like so starstruck. I was just lost for words. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
He
It
gives
was
you
also when I went there, it was a really good time too. Yeah, I mean, he was had a really good camp there and everything. It was a good time.
larger than life coach, man. Go Tigers. When you look at, they're bringing in obviously quarterback. You talked about it. It's constantly, a battle and competition. But what do the coaches tell you when they brought in MJ? Because, that's kind of it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's also, from the outside looking in, not a sign of confidence that they're still looking to add people in the room. What did they tell you and Billy?
Just that, I mean, this is the landscape of college football. I mean, there's nothing to it. You have to kind of, it's easy, like I said, especially someone outside looking in, it's easy to take it as like a slap at you or like, I mean, a slap to the face. But you have to understand that you need competition in a room. Some of the best quarterback seasons came from after a great spring battle. You know what I mean? Like Dwayne Haskins, rest in peace, had a great year at Ohio State. Why? He competed with someone that was very good in the spring with Joe Burrow. You know what I mean? It's like those things happen. And like we also, you got to have a certain amount of people in the room. You know what I mean? And what they told me and Billy is that there's nobody that's going into this as a number one. Everybody has to compete, and the best man has to win the job. And that's what probably every coach in America has to say, because that's what it is. You want the best 11 on both sides of the field playing for you for your university.
How do you make sure though, like for you, when I assume they're splitting reps, right, between starters and stuff like that. So you get a very limited amount of time with that starting group to kind of show what you can do. How do you handle like the nerves of not trying to do too much in a practice, right? Where you're like, okay, I got to impress everyone and make it, because that's probably a natural feeling, right?
So absolutely.
Is that, do you think that almost can, like you said, make people rise to the top, but also then you see a lot of transfer outs once those players don't get the job because they're like, all right, screw this, I'm out of here.
Absolutely. I think it comes down to kind of just how you look at things. And the best thing, like I said, I always feel like the truth comes out and they said the cream rises to the top. And whoever you are is going to prevail. You know what I mean? Like I said, some of the best stories have been transfers. Some of the best stories have been guys that Mac Jones, who stayed behind Tua, and people thought Bryce Young was going to beat him out, and then he had a great year. You know what I mean? So there's no one way this thing goes for anybody. Everyone's story is different. So, and it's very hard when you go in there and it's just like, you're competing, and like you say, you're trying to impress. But sometimes you have to take the step back and say, I'm not trying to impress. I'm just trying to do the best that I can do every play. Because sometimes you might think throwing the fade route is like the most appealing, that's going to win you the job. But actually, it sometimes it's not, especially if it wasn't what was supposed to be done. Sometimes throwing the hitch when you get blitzed, or the hot route, or even just checking the run to the right look is what that people are actually looking for. It's not always who throws the best ball, who does this. coaches look at it more from who runs the offense the best way. You know what I mean? And I think that's kind of can take some of the pressure off because it's not easy for anybody. There's other positions that compete for jobs, and no quarterback is what the one a lot of people talk about. But that's kind of how you take the pressure off yourself. Just run the system the right way. You know what I mean? That's what people see. Be the guy everyone wants to be around and just lead the guys and just be a hard worker. That's kind of how I look at it. And if you put the right amount of preparation in, everything kind of falls to the wayside at that point.
Kind of speaking about splitting duties, maybe this is a silly question, but is there a possibility that that doesn't just stay in Nashville, that that continues into next year? And then how would you feel comfortability wise, you know, splitting reps in game? Like, how does that feel as a player?
With me as a competitor, I just want to be on the field when it matters. You know what I mean? When the game's on the line. You know what I mean? I want the ball in my hands. That's how I've always been. You know what I mean? That's probably a better question for Coach Locks, where it will go from there. You know what I mean? But I know he's going to make the right decision at the end of the day for the team, and that's what's best. You know what I mean? So whatever wins games for us and whatever does the best for his university is what I'm for. You know what I mean? That's why I came here. So whatever that is, I'll be down for it.
You were kind of coming to Maryland and making your college decision right around the time when, NIL opened up. And so how much did you really consider, NIL opportunities at Maryland, and kind of what have you done with your name, image, and likeness at this point?
It's been like I said, it was so new at that time. They said I don't think anyone really knew too much about it, honestly. And it was like it was just such a big like window, like no one knew what you could or couldn't do. So with me, it wasn't like the end all be all. You know what I mean? I got great parents at home that take care of me. So my thing really was just what's the best football situation for me? You know what I mean? Because if you make it about something that's not that, you could be in the wrong situation. You know what I mean? I believe I made a decision to come to Maryland because like this is the right offense that fits my skill set, and it's the right people to develop me as a quarterback. So it didn't play a huge factor in that. I've done little things here and there, but it's like it's not really my main focus. You know what I mean? Like every day my focus is just like, you know what I mean, be the first guy in there, be the last guy out, and just continue to work on things I need to work on and continue to get better and prepare for spring battle and everything like that going into the fall camp as well.
Off the football field, what's your favorite thing and least favorite thing about College Park?
Least favorite thing, that's easy. Parking. Yeah, I just got done paying a $300 fine for parking. That is probably easily the worst thing here. Uh, Best thing about College Park, I'll say two things. One, for me, it's an hour and a half away from home, so that's easy. And then second thing, I'd probably say Epply. I like to play basketball and go over there, you know what I mean, get a little competitive and have some good runs over there a lot.
What's our player type, our player archetype looking like here, Cam?
For me at basketball?
Yeah, who's the NBA comp you're giving yourself?
Oh man, I might get in trouble for this one. My friends are gonna get on me for this one. Ah, I'm gonna say Luca. I pass the ball decently well, and it's being in a humble way. I'm not super athletic. I don't jump a whole lot. I pass the ball well, have an inside game, and I shoot the ball well. Always played basketball growing up with dad. Shot the ball 500 times a day. So shoot the three ball well and can get inside as well. So that's how I look at it.
Hoop
And don't
team
play a lot of defense either. I'll go ahead and say that too.
the hoop team might need you.
Nah, they're hot right now. They'll be all right.
Yeah.
Who's the best player on the team?
Ooh, I would say myself, but it's Ty Felton. It's probably the best one actually. Ty Felton or Preston Howard, best basketball players.
Yeah, I was hooping one time at Epply and Talia pulled in, and I saw one jump shot, and I was like, "Ooh, football guy." Who's the player that plays the most like a football player? If like the stereotype.
Yeah, I haven't seen. I know we probably have some people like that. I haven't seen enough guys like so we're just getting off season where I haven't seen enough guys there yet.
Yeah,
Just to give that. I know what you're talking about, but yeah,
Coach
I
Locks.
haven't seen. We have some pretty like talented basketball guys actually, like actually know how to play the game.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm interested to see that one actually myself.
When Coach Locks came on, he said he could give out a bucket here or there. You know what I mean? He could shoot it a little.
I haven't seen it yet, but I would love to. I would love to see it. Yeah, that'd be cool to see.
Speaking of locks, we've gotten some incredible recruiting stories about locks. He told a story about when he visited Vernon Davis while he was working at Quiznos to recruit him to Maryland. Do you have any stories about Loxley when he was trying to court you to come to Maryland?
Coach Locks is just there's not too many rooms Coach Locks is going to go in where he's not the funniest guy there. You know what I mean? So when I was here on official visit, I sat next to him, and there was a lot of jokes. He was just a funny guy, and really with me, like I just remember talking to Coach Locks on the phone when I was in like ninth grade. Nothing like crazy or anything, but like I just always remember him talking about like how good the system is for quarterback and his tournaments is bulletproof. It's bulletproof. You know what I mean? He even said that before the game in the bowl game. You don't got to do too much. You know what I mean? And I think that's another thing Talia taught us. Like the stuff is there. You know what I mean? Kind of when you learn more in it, like we always are taught, like use the weapons the way they're supposed to be used. You know what I mean? There's always stuff to go to. There's always a way out of trouble. It's a very well taught system and everything. So he's kind of been preaching that to me since ninth grade, and I remember some of those conversations and stuff like that. So. Yeah.
All right, Cam, one last question for you. So every week we do like a little draft. We try to stick with sports themes, but we do some random stuff. So we ask the guest every week. This week our category is sports movies. So in each category, I'm gonna ask you to pick, one movie, one athlete from the movie, a team, and then like a side character, not like the main athlete. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So what's your favorite sports movie? What are you taking?
Favorite sports movie. I don't watch a lot of movies, but out of sports alone, I'm gonna just go with The Longest Yard.
Okay.
The newest one. The newest one. I've seen both, but the newest one, yeah.
That's a good pick. All right, what about a character like an athlete? Who are you taking?
Adam Sandler, the quarterback.
Okay, good one. All right, and then what's like a team? Any movies you remember where you're like, oh man, that was a fire movie. Their team was good.
Team was good. Forrest Gump's team was pretty good when he got it was a small club. They weren't bad, weren't they?
Yeah, that's a good one, man. The little Alabama team when he ran.
Yeah, they weren't bad.
And then what's like a good you said you don't watch a lot of movies, so this might be tough, but like a good side character, like someone who wasn't the main guy, but you were like, oh yeah, like I liked him.
In a sports movie?
Yeah. You ever see Blindside?
No, I've heard of it. I've never watched it though. Never watched it. Well, what's the guy that who did Chris Rock play in The Longest Yard?
What was his name? We'll figure that out. We'll put him up on the graphic for you.
Yeah.
People will know Cam Edge is a Longest Yard fan.
Yeah. I definitely watched that one. That or Major League. Major League was a good one too.
Major League's hilarious.
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, we appreciate you hopping on. Thanks for giving all great answers, and we'll make sure to plug your socials. You're on Twitter and Instagram, right?
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
So thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming on. We appreciate your time and good luck in the off season, man.
Yes, sir. Appreciate that.
Keep handing out buckets at Epply.
Yes, sir. I'll do that.
Well, Cam Edge made a great play in the Auburn game, and we can start right there, guys. Football wrapped up their season. Almost a month ago. Yeah, over a month ago at this point. Beating Auburn in kind of a dominating fashion. A little surprising in some lights, but according to Hugh Freeze, they didn't really care about that game. So maybe it wasn't all that surprising in other ways, but good way to end Maryland's season. Just some quick hitters. Mike, Brennan, what did you see from both the quarterbacks? Because I think that was kind of the main thing on people's minds during that game.
I think you see the differences in their play. Obviously, with Billy Edwards, there's a big emphasis on having him rush as a QB. But then with Cam, they really trusted him and relied on his arm and the snaps that he got. Of course, he had that big pass, the second play he got in. Pretty exciting for Terps fans to see that. But it's going to be a QB battle between the two of them. Both of them looked really good. You can't really point to any major mistakes in that game by either of them. It's going to be an exciting time for Terps fans in the offseason watching the battle go down.
Mike, it's going to be a battle between them, but you can't forget MJ Morris, the transfer brought in from NC State. the three of them, I think Maryland fans have to feel pretty good after watching the bowl game, seeing Billy and Cam, and knowing what MJ did at NC State. Terps fans have to feel pretty good going into next season about the quarterback conversation. I know we had talked about it a ton that this next season after Talia was done, had no eligibility left. Maybe he did. There's a whole other story on that. We're not going to get into that, but Terps fans were kind of what's going to happen next season. And I think they got to feel like they're in a pretty good spot. The one thing I was wondering is we talked about it with Cam too, but having the coach's ear in the helmet, I wonder how much that impacted, and maybe what would they have played different if they were able to look over and what a normal college game is like. So it'll be interesting to see that, and maybe it was a good starting point for them because they had that ability, have the ear in the helmet. So we'll have to see. But Sam, I know you were at the game. What was the atmosphere like, and what'd you think?
Yeah, it was really Nashville's a cool city, so it was cold, man. It was cold as hell. So I was sitting in front of a Auburn fan, and they were not pleased with the temperature, but definitely it was Auburn filled. But Terps fans made their mark. You could hear it once Maryland had that big run with Henby, and they had the pick six. It got pretty loud in there for Maryland. So cool atmosphere. I think Mike talked about the strengths. And I definitely think you could kind of see the variety and the stark contrast in how the quarterbacks play. But I also think you saw the two of their weaknesses as well, right? Like Billy Edwards, as much as he contributed on the ground, 6 of 20 for 126 yards, and a lot of that was aided by after the catch stuff, right? On the other end, the Roman Hemby screenplay that went for like 61 yards, that takes up damn near half of his yards. Cam, only threw it 6 times, 82 yards, solid stat line. He also threw a pick. I think that when you look at the quarterbacks, they still have a large room to grow. I'm interested, and it was really important for me to hear what Edge had to say on our interview about how he talked about the system, right? And how Gaddis and Loxley say the system is bulletproof almost. Just run it how we want you to run it. Don't try to go outside of what we want you to do, and it'll work. In some ways, I wonder if that was almost an indictment of Talia. Now, Talia probably had higher highs, but he also had some lower lows. Do you guys think that this is kind of a signal that they won't just want their quarterback this next year, manage the offense, don't go outside the numbers, or don't go outside of what they tell you to do, and they'll be all right because they can drop some, pretty well run plays and a system. Mike, you got any thoughts on that?
I can genuinely see them going to 2 QB route next year. Have Billy in a Taysom Hill type role. You're gonna have no idea whether they're gonna pass it or run if Billy comes in. Obviously, maybe a higher chance of running it, but I think it could work for them. It worked for them really good in the first half against Auburn. So that's what I'm thinking QB wise.
So you do not subscribe by the old adage, if you have two quarterbacks, you have none.
If you have two quarterbacks, it makes you two quarterbacks better.
I also think that there's no shot that all three of them stick around like into spring. Like I think there'll be a clear pecking order at a certain point, and the guy who's either third and potentially even second, if there's a clear number one, I think they'll head back into the portal. I just think that three quarterbacks, all who have had starting, Cam has had the least, but at least showed some sort of high level competition and played well. There's no shot all three of them stick around when they all have multiple years of eligibility. So I'm really interested to see. I think kind of once we get to spring ball, that'll kind of tell you where they're at. But that's a long way away, and we'll have next year to talk about that. So
anybody come away from the game thinking that Roman Hemby is going to have a massive season next year?
Sounds like you have some intrusive, personalized thoughts there, Mike.
I'm feeling very optimistic, especially with the first half. The second half was a little bit slower, but I mean, it's the first game for Billy starting in over a year. First game for Cam starting at all in college. I
Mike,
thought it was a pretty good showing.
can I ask you what about Roman Hemby's other than the screenplay? He I think he had like 17 yards on 7 carries. Not exactly a stellar stat line. What did you see that made you
The
so
screenplay.
okay, gotcha. Fair enough. Fair enough. It was a great play. Great play. Definitely a nice little action there to get Hemby open. But like we said, great ending to the football season. Don't think it should take away from kind of overall a disappointing year, I think we can say.
Yeah, I mean, we could talk about this for hours about if it was or wasn't. Winning a bowl game is big. Gets recruits, gets eyes. Maryland beat an SEC school. That's always big. I think what we learned by the end of the year is that this team's defense is actually pretty darn good. If you watched and followed Michigan won the national championship, Maryland, played a very competitive game against them. And I think that was pretty indicative of the fact that this Maryland defense, if it stays as good as it was this year and going into next year, then they're once again going to be competitive in those games. And I think that's a huge positive. And just to get back to what Mike was saying, Roman Hemby had 8 touches in that game.
8 touches for 78 yards. It's pretty efficient if you ask me.
Hey, big cherry picker of stats here. We subscribe to that at Under the Shell. As we kind of move into the current sports, though, we're looking at the basketball teams are the main topic of mine, and they're both it seems like they're trending in opposite directions, maybe. We'll start with the team on the downswing. The women's basketball team just got wiped at Penn State. Brutal loss there. Mike, really quickly, I know you were covering that game. What did you see when they were in Scary Valley for Maryland?
I actually thought the offense played pretty good. I just thought their defense could not keep up with Penn State's scoring. I mean, they were 12 for 16 from 3 in the second half. That is absurd efficiency. And that does not happen 10 out of 10 times. That's a really good performance. I also think you're starting to see the missing depth for Maryland. They lost Emma Chardone early in the season. She appeared in all 8 games before she got hurt. And then, of course, Riley Nelson got hurt against Purdue. That's 2 long and athletic players that are now off the Terps defense, offense as well. And I think defense especially, you just see them getting worn down, don't have as many bodies as they used to have. I know, Sam, you have something to add.
Yeah, I think that, I actually have a piece coming out about this the day that this pod drops, so check that out. I think I agree. Obviously, the injuries to Nelson and Chardone are tough, and other people have missed time. Briggs, Shy was hurt. It looked like a little bit there. Seems okay, but this is my take. We talk a lot about Willard and kind of how he mishandled the offseason and didn't bring enough bodies in the portal that were, Big Ten caliber players. I think Brenda Freese is kind of getting a pass, and I don't think she did a good enough job in the offseason. When you look at the numbers for why this team is losing, they've already lost more games in conference this year than they lost all of last year, and we're about halfway through. So in the offseason, right, they bring in Jakia Brown-Turner, and she started to turn it around, obviously, is playing a lot better now than she did in the beginning of the season. But
over 18 points a game the past 4 games.
She's played very well. However, we knew that this team's biggest issue going into it would be shooting, right? Most likely. Shooting, and they didn't have enough guard depth. This is their numbers right now when it comes to shooting. They haven't shot like on their percentage of points that are 3-pointers. So how many points they score a game is 3-pointers. This is the lowest it's been since 2016 for Maryland women's hoops, and a 4% drop from last season. So their shooting has not been good, right? Another reason that's so you add your biggest player, your one player in the portal, Brown-Turner. She doesn't add the kind of thing that you need the most, shooting. Another issue. Eliza Pinzon last year averaged like 3 points a game, but she knew how to run the offense. She played decent defense the guard, and she mostly gave Diamond and Shy Sellers a break. They didn't do that this year. The 17.3% turnover rate that Maryland currently holds is the worst percentage in the last 5 years. Sellers' percent turnover per game has jumped like nearly by 2 turnovers a night. She's having to play way more of an on-ball role, and now that Nelson's hurt, they don't have anybody to replace her. And let's not act like Riley Nelson was like this savior, right? And she got injured. She was playing well, but in conference, she wasn't even averaging 12 minutes a night. It was like 9 minutes a game, and she was taking 3 shots a game. So she wasn't like playing this huge role, okay? Lastly, you talk about how a lot of Maryland's makeup is transfers, right? Renee Alexander, Lavender Briggs, Brown-Turner, Quebec, all these players. There was not enough of a concentrated effort to add quality depth and to add, I think, a secondary score. If not for Bree McDaniel taking this huge leap, Maryland would be even more cooked than what it already is. And I think we all thought that she would make a jump, but not nearly as much. So I think that Freeze, in a way, definitely mishandled the what they did this offseason. They needed another guard. I think they easily could have gotten another big in the portal. And preferably, you would have liked to have seen them get a shooter of some sort. So I just think we're giving Willard some heat. I think Brenda deserves some too.
I think that NIL probably plays a massive factor in this. I don't think that Coach Freese just sat there, not trying to get anybody. We've heard Willard, and we'll touch on basketball in a little bit, but we've heard Willard grope and moan about NIL at Maryland the past few weeks. So if it's bad on the men's side, it's got to be even worse on the women's side of the court. So I definitely think that because you saw how Freese did in the transfer portal the summer before. She brought in Renee Alexander, Lavender Briggs, Pinson. Like, she made good additions that helped the team. And Abby Myers. You've seen how Freese has used the portal in the past, especially last summer before this season. She got in Abby Myers. She got in Lavender Briggs. She got on Renee Alexander. She brought in good contributors. This summer, NIL, you see all the transfers going on. If it's bad on the men's side, it's bad on the women's side. And I think Freese wasn't getting a lot of support there.
But I just think NIL's been around since last summer. So I don't think that's Abby Myers, Brene, and all of them were making money off NIL beforehand when there wasn't a collective for women's hoops. There now is, right? Not solely, but there is a collective that addresses women hoops. I just don't think that, yes, obviously Maryland's NIL is not up to the standard of a South Carolina, of, other schools. But Maddie Nolan went to Colorado. And I'm not saying I know like a few names that they looked at in the portal, and I'm not saying that, Freeze didn't look or didn't make an effort. But at the end of the day, it's a results-oriented business, right? We can say they tried, but they failed. If they were looking at multiple portal options and they couldn't pull any in, that's an indictment of the coaching staff, right? I mean, we have to call it what it is. And you want to talk about quality depth. It's not like these injuries have happened to any of their like top 6, top 7 contributors.
I think in the Penn State game, you saw someone that could have been on the Maryland team who wasn't, right? Ashley Owusu transferred out, would have still had eligibility to be on this team this year. And it's things like that. I think when you look at, you started to compare the men's and the women's teams, and I think it's a fair comparison. The thing that I've looked at, I haven't been able to catch all the women's games or all the men's games over break, but I've looked at a lot of the scores, and the men's losses are very close. The games that they lost, one possession games, playing very close. If you look back at the women's season, a lot of the games they have lost, they haven't been competitive in at all. And the Penn State game was one of those games. So I think that's a fair point you make there, Sam. And, the question I would then ask to you is, you mentioned one name, but I haven't really followed the women's, basketball transfer portal as much as you have. What do you do for next season?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, and to great point, Brendan, about the blowout losses. Another thing, in close games, they're not winning. They're 1-3 in two possession games that are decided. Last year, 5-0.
This is the women's team, right? Yeah.
Yeah, 5-0 in two possession games last year. Already 1-3 this year. I mean, the Michigan game was just an all-time collapse that in a game they needed to have. So I think that's been obviously a factor too, and that doesn't really have to do with the portal. That's just like a year to year. Sometimes you're good in close games, sometimes you're bad. When it comes to the portal, it's hard because you don't necessarily always know, right? Like who's going to be there. Like they tried for Nisha Morrow last year and she chose LSU. That's an example I think Mike is talking about NIL. I think there are like an Abby Myers caliber player, a Pinzon caliber player, a Brene Alexander caliber player that you can look at next offseason to bring in. And they're going to need a lot of bodies next year, okay? Brene's going to leave. Lavender's going to leave. Faith will leave. Quebec, I think, can stay. Jakia's gone. That's potentially 3 to 4 starters that have played major minutes this year that you're going to need to replace. And you've got to look at the transfer portal to pull in some bodies. So I think that they're going to need to, I don't know if it's NIL. I don't know if they got to be more aggressive. They got to get back to what they were doing the summer that Mike talked about.
One thing that they do have going for them is that they have signed 3 freshmen who are in the top 50, headlined by Ava McKinney. So that is going for them. But knowing Freese and the way that she coaches her freshmen, they're likely not going to see any time early on.
Yeah, I mean, you can't like it's been proven. I think you can't really rely on freshmen. And I mean, Nelson was this, 5-star, and Emily Fisher's played a little bit, but they're going to coach them up, get them in their system. Year 2, year 3, they'll be that. Bree McDaniel's taken a huge leap, right? She played 8 minutes a game last year. So I think it's a whole interesting point.
You can't ignore they lost 2 first-round draft picks.
Oh yeah, this
Like
team.
that's massive part of the thing. Like that's a lot to make up from. They don't have a Diamond Miller anymore to just throw the ball to with 10 seconds left, the play fails, and just say, Diamond, go score. And 50% of the time, she probably will. They don't have that anymore.
Yeah, this team I was looking, it really compares to Iowa State of last year. Maryland's a little better, but Iowa State lost 2 WNBA draft picks as well. Their top 2 scorers. Their record now has dropped, and they're like 12-7 or whatever. But I think that Maryland holds itself, and Mike, I think you would agree, to a higher standard, right? This is a team that should make the NCAA tournament every single year. If they're one of the top 5, top 10 programs in the country, no matter who you lose, you have Cheyenne Sellers. You know how many teams would kill for her? Bree McDaniel is a high level, probably a second team All Big Ten. You could argue she's been this team's best player. Those are players. If you have those two, that core, you need to make the tournament. So if they don't do it, I still think you can't just say, oh, they lost 2 first rounders. They're absolved from everything that happened this year. You know what I mean?
And I checked this morning. I saw the ESPN bracketology for the women's side, and they're still projected to make it. They're in the 9th seed right now. But I mean, they got tests ahead of them. Obviously, like you said, they got Indiana, they got Iowa this week. Sam, you want to preview that?
Yeah, I think, and Brendan, you can kind of talk about it. I think this, in these next 2 games, you look at it, 2 top 10 teams coming to College Park. I think that you got to get at least one, and to really feel good, you might need both in terms of like getting a top 6, top 7 seed. You lose both, man. You're playing on a thread because they have 1, maybe 2 quality wins this year. Syracuse comes to mind, and that's about it. So these are 2 home games. Iowa's going to be a madhouse. It's a sellout, first since like 2016. I don't know. What do you think they need to do this week?
A very good journalist who I follow on X informed me that the Syracuse game was Maryland's only ranked win. Is that still true?
Let me look at the rankings. Person was upset that I called it a ranked win when Syracuse got brought into the top 25, even though they were not ranked at the time they played. But yes, Syracuse is 21st. So that is
okay. So
for Maryland.
Got it. Yeah, I personally I think it's a ranked win, but whatever. I was just giving you a shout out there is what I was doing.
Thank you. Thank you, Kevin.
Realistically, you look at Maryland's only ranked win, which didn't actually come against a team that was ranked at the time. 2 big games at home, right? Indiana the night this podcast, and then Iowa, biggest story in college basketball this year on Saturday night. Realistically, I don't think Maryland will win either of these games.
I agree.
So you think they go 0-2?
That'd be my prediction. If I had to guess, I just knowing what I know about college basketball and what the Xfinity Center may be like on Saturday night, that might be the loudest crowd that's been in that building all year.
No, it will be.
And Sam says it will be. So I think that Maryland will play that game close for the first quarter, and then after that, Iowa's going to run away. If Maryland can somehow win one of these games, it puts them in a good position. But nonetheless, this team is absolutely sliding in the complete wrong direction. And there's a realistic possibility, at least in my opinion, that they don't make the tournament.
The quarter to watch them play in is the third quarter, because that's what makes and breaks the game for them. So did the math here. So in their losses, they're shooting 38.46% in the third and 47% the rest of the game. So that's a massive decline coming out the break. And we've seen it in multiple losses. I think before the Penn State game, they had 4 straight losses where they had a lead in the third quarter and they ended up losing the game. So Freese has talked about it many times. She's mentioned conditioning, that they just don't have the depth anymore, and the team just has to be more conditioned coming out of the break to be able to keep up with these Big Ten teams. They got to be able to come out the break hot and not off to a slow start against Indiana and Iowa.
I think they beat Indiana. I think that they played well against them last year, played them close on the road. I know it's a different team. Mackenzie Holmes is really friggin' good. I just think they're going to come out with a certain desperation, and I think they're going to get that one. So that's my prediction, 1-1.
In terms of exact bracketology, I know neither of you claim to be experts, but what has to go right for this team to make the tournament?
I think you look at this as the Big Ten right now, right? Ohio State, Iowa, Indiana. I think, maybe you're looking, Penn State has played really well in conference. Those are probably the locks that you're maybe looking at right now. I think Maryland probably has to get 11, 12 conference wins. They're non-conference. They lost games and they didn't beat anybody. Green Bay was their best win. I think you get to 11 or 12 wins, you steal a game you shouldn't, and you take care of business, you're probably looking at a 7, 8, 9 seed. If you win 10 or 11, you're hanging on the thread. That's what I would say.
And they also have that Syracuse game, but
yeah. Oh, yeah. Sorry, Syracuse. That was their best win. My apologies.
Maryland used to be in that conference, so I'll give you a pass on that.
My apologies. Yeah. I think 11 or 12. Mike, how many conference wins do you think they got to get to?
I don't think it's conference wins. I just think they need to pick up a win against either Ohio State, Indiana, or Iowa. If they get one of those wins, I think obviously Maryland, they have the resume of the past. I think that does factor in to the brackets as much as, the committees don't want to say it. It is Maryland. They are a good program. They can make it off of merit. But definitely they just need to get one of those wins, and I think they get in.
Okay, so just for future reference or for past reference, last year, the Big Ten had 5 teams make it. A team with 11 wins did not make it. Illinois was set on the outside, and Michigan barely made it. Indiana, Iowa, Maryland, Ohio State, Michigan. So I think 11 wins, probably hanging on the thread. 12, you feel pretty good. That's what I would guess.
Yeah, history predicts the
this
future.
Team is also proven, though, they can lose to anybody. So, you can't really just, check up like, oh, yeah, they'll beat, Nebraska at home, right? So, I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, bracketology will definitely be super important for the men's and women's team. Women going in the wrong direction. The men, however, they keep climbing the Ken Palm rankings, keep climbing the net rankings, and they seem to have put themselves in a spot that some people may not thought they would have been in 2 or 3 weeks ago. So, 12 games we didn't miss. What were some of your biggest takeaways from those games?
Jameer Young is really good. And if this team did not have Jameer Young, this team would not even be close to talking about making the NIT.
Yeah, point blank period. I mean, he's been elite. This defense, I think, though, was my biggest takeaway. They really have started to lock in defensively. I think they're up to 8th in Ken Palm, something like that. But they're adjusted. I like looking at Bart Torvik because it's free. Their adjusted defensive efficiency is 14th in the country. Their offensive, guess what that is, fellas?
Is it in the hundreds?
170, something around there, right?
Yeah, 183rd. Their effective field goal percentage this year is ranking in the 282nd spot of Division I college basketball. Not necessarily what you like to see, but I think the formula against Nebraska and even Michigan State felt right? Play really hard, play really good defense, switch up your ball screen coverage, kind of go back and forth between that matchup zone and the man-to-man they like to play. And then, dude, you just got to pray that one of Jahari Long or Jamie Kaiser can make a couple threes. And last game it was Kaiser, and the past 2 games it's been Long, who, hot take, needs to play more than Deshaun Harris-Smith at this point.
I think what happened with Long was, he got injured. I don't remember exactly what happened, but I know he missed a couple of games, right? And so I think he was just kind of slowly getting back into the role. And I do agree with you, Sam, though. I mean, when he's been on the floor and he's been on, it's been a huge difference maker. And I think You look at the Iowa game and you look at the Nebraska game for Maryland, and looking at both those games and the way that Maryland played, if they can keep that up for the rest of the season, I think they're going to make the tournament. But there's just no saying that that's going to continue to happen. Although Willard seems very confident in his press conference that this team is going to keep getting better and better. And he's kind of said that the whole season. And it's been true up to this point. So I have no reason not to believe it.
Right now, though, just to let you guys know, when you go to Torvik, they do what's called a really cool, like you can look at projected final resumes and then compare them to past teams. They like match it up by like what's the, like a team that compares very similarly to what they would be at the end. Every team they've been compared to did not make the NCAA tournament. So, but I do think that the past couple games are a very good sign. If they keep playing like this and they continue it throughout the year, they'll be on the bubble. That's all I'll say.
They got 10 games left. What you got them going?
Oh, man. I got to look at the schedule. Let me delay real quick. Someone else podcast.
I have them going 7-3, which would have them finishing 20-11. I think they drop Wisconsin. They drop Illinois.
I would put
And
them
I
at
think they
12.
drop a game they probably shouldn't.
That'd be 12 wins in conference, right?
How many do they have right now?
5-5. So yeah, 12-8.
But a little bit of Maryland history. They went 25-13 in 2013, lost in the ACC semifinals, did not make the tournament. So I think a lot of this depends on how they perform in the Big Ten tournament. I think if they have a solid showing there, then kind of shoe it.
I agree, Mike. I think if you're at that 7-3 and you lose in the first round, you're out. But if you win like one or two games, you probably feel pretty good. I would say record wise, I actually think they beat Illinois at home. I think they lose to State, Ohio State, and probably drop a game. Yeah, drop a game they shouldn't. So 7-3, but I could also see 6-4. I think this last stretch might be a little bit of a mirage.
Can always count on them dropping a game they shouldn't, huh?
Piscataway, University Park, Happy Valley, last game of the season that just screams a Maryland loss when they absolutely need a win.
I don't know. I'm gonna say 8-2. If you look at how some of the other teams have played, I don't know, a Penn State loss would just seem pretty odd, right? It's very possible, and it'd be kind of, not if you can't, if you think about Maryland's history, you'd probably think they'll drop that game. But I don't know. I think 8-2. I think they're going to lose to Ohio State and Michigan State, and they're going to finish undefeated at home from here on out. But their Wisconsin game is also huge.
That's a big game.
They could also easily lose that game, but Wisconsin's been best team in the Big Ten. But I actually do think they win that one.
Settle down, bro. All right, Wisconsin is not better than
they have the best record in the Big Ten right now. So
that's a better way to phrase it. I think that, like you said, B, I think that good thing about their schedule, the Big Ten is so mediocrely good that there's opportunities to pick up easy quad 1, quad 2 wins, right? Like every game they play the rest of the way will be a resume booster. So that helps a lot.
Do you guys want to hear a hot take or no?
Let's hear it.
Kenny Payne probably going to get fired after the season at Louisville. He gets fired. Willard doesn't make the tournament, and they don't get Derek Queen. I can see Willard going back to Louisville.
Derek Queen playing a very large role in Kevin Willard leaving the school.
But seriously, what do they have next year if Derek Queen isn't here?
Cupboard's bare, man.
Yeah.
That's a take. We'll save that for a future episode. Let's see how this season ends. But you heard it from Mike. I think this kind of this stretch here, Brendan, will play a large role in maybe what the future of Maryland hoops is.
Absolutely. I'm glad you phrased that as a hot take, because that take pretty much stinks. I don't think that's possible at all. I really, maybe I'll end up on a terrible take website for saying this is a bad take, but I think it's a higher chance that you end up on a bad takes website, because there's no way that happens. No way.
I think I'm like in between. Like, I don't think it's completely out of the realm of possibility. Willard kind of like got his start at Louisville. That seems maybe a better fit for him. But at the same time, year 2, he made the tournament last year. He's got a couple of pieces, Harris Smith, Kaiser. I don't see it, but I don't think it's like out of the realm of possibility.
Mike,
He
are
can
you
stay at
aware?
a top 15 public university, Big Ten Conference, Under Armour flagship, coaching staff of the NFL. Why not stay at Maryland?
This
Mike, are you aware that Louisville has been one of the worst Power Five teams, if not the worst Power Five basketball team in the past 2 years?
bro,
Yes, and are you aware that their new coach is just as bad as Chris Mack was? Like, they still stink. Nothing's changed.
Louisville, bro, could be a powerhouse. Remember the or the Patino days, man?
They have a really nice arena. It was like the KFC, like
The
the
Yum
arena.
Center.
Yeah, yeah, the Yum
Yum.
Yum Center.
Very unknown fact. Mike House is apparently a huge Louisville basketball
He's
fan.
a
I didn't realize that.
big Louisville guy. Loves the Cardinals. But we've thrown off enough off topic here talking about Yum Yum Centers and Chris Mack. So let's move
The
on
top
to
15 public university.
so let's move on to sports that are actually happening in College Park. The wrestling team, Alex Clemson, um, you know, they are doing the thing, man. The same thing they do every year. B, what do you got for us?
Okay, let me read you some rankings of some Maryland wrestlers. Here's the thing. If you read me these rankings, I obviously looked them up, but if you'd read me them, I would have said that's very unlikely that it's Maryland's team. I looked at the Flow Wrestling and the Intermat rankings. I gave each wrestler the benefit of the doubt, gave them the highest ranking. So I'm gonna hit with you. Braxton Brown ranked 15th in the country and picked up some points against Penn State. Cal Miller, 17th in the country. Ethan Miller, 14th in the country, also picked up some points against Penn State. Michael North, 32nd. Jackson Smith, 4th. Seth Neville's 25th. Having that many ranked wrestlers on the Maryland roster is extremely rare. Scoring points at all against Penn State is something they've very rarely done. They tied their, all-time record, which is 6. It's not incredible, but this program is absolutely heading in the right direction. They're going to have people that are going to be competitive at the Big Ten tournament, which is, in College Park in March. So maybe that'll help them a little home cooking and a usual place to compete. So I think this team is going to have success in the Big Ten tournament and the NCAA tournament this year.
Wow. Big year for Coach Clemson. That's pretty impressive. Braxton Brown, man, he is good. He is really good. I in prep for this podcast. I can't say I'm a wrestling guy, but I was looking, doing my due diligence, and Braxton Brown has been super good this year, man. Like he's basically winning damn near all of his competitions. And as a sophomore, man, he gets it done. And I think he's had a really good year. Won at Penn State, beat Indiana, won against Northwestern. So for a lightweight guy, he's had a really good year. Fun fact, I also had a class that sat right next to him. Not a biased journalist, though.
Yeah. Maryland no longer in the rankings. I believe as a team, they're ranked 21st and 25th. But after the Penn State loss, I'd expect them to fall out. But they have a few more Big Ten meets and then a little more than a month away from the Big Ten championship. So they have some time.
Yeah, they gotta find a way. That Big Ten championship will be pretty big, obviously. When you look at it from a holistic standpoint, in terms of quick hitters on the other side, with other sports, baseball, still we're getting into spring ball here soon, so that'll be excited to watch. See Matt Swope's first season. Gymnastics. Their beam unit has been really good. I read an article on the Diamondback from Leah Glazer that they have the best beam unit in the Big Ten, so they'll be competing in the NCAA tournament. Maryland Gymnastics is a really solid program if you look at it. They're up there with the rest of the country for sure. And then other quick hitters, I don't have anything else. We're just kind of in that winter sports only mode. Brett and Mike, you guys got anything?
Lacrosse gonna be good again this year. Both sides of lacrosse. You've got lacrosse. Any other things going on around Maryland? Let's see.
The men's lacrosse schedule is brutal, man.
Always is.
7 teams that played in the tournament, including the 3 out of the 4 teams that made the Final Four. That's nuts.
If you're a coach of a team, would you rather face a really hard schedule and battle test your team and have a good resume, but maybe some
Oh no,
losses, or a soft schedule and have just a bunch of wins?
I'm scheduling a bunch of cupcakes. Give me the rest.
Brendan, put on
I
your
don't know.
coaching shoes.
If you want to be the best, I think that's the Maryland like lacrosse. They say that all the time. But seriously, I think for teams that want to be competitive and win national championships, you have to know how to win close competitive games. Your team might get beat up, probably going to lose some games early on, but I mean, no one remembers what happened in your third game of the season. It happens if you win the last game of the season. I think that's what Maryland lacrosse has always stood for. And you got to absolutely, think that these coaches are scheduling these teams on purpose, right, Mike? I mean, why else would they do it? They're not scheduling Notre Dame
Yeah.
by accident, right?
Plus, the other thing is you play these teams early on in the season. They're good teams. Maybe you face them again in the tournament. Like that, seeing them for a first time and being able to game plan off of what they did to you helps tremendously. It's very hard to beat a team twice.
I'd say the other way, though, maybe don't want to show minor stuff. But I think that all these competitive teams that they do want to face each other. And yeah, I'm looking forward to the men's and women's lacrosse season.
That's kind of a wrap for all the sports that we've got. To kind of finish out the episode, we're going to give two segments. First, we're going to start it with the little draft here. We're bringing the drafts back. Since I was the champion of bowl picks, there's so many college basketball games happening. We can't do those. So we did this last year for all our new audience members. Every week we do what's a sports draft, some related. Usually it's Maryland related. This week it's not. Because to throw it back, to bring back Under the Shell, we had to come up with something fun, something new. We like all of you to participate. So under the episode release link on Twitter, you can put your teams down and we'll give it a shout out and take a look at them. So this week's topic is sport movies specifically. We're going to get a character, a movie, a team, and like a side character, athlete, whatever you want to call it. So, Mike, since this was your idea, my good friend, I will let you have the first pick.
Man, this is very tricky. There's a lot of good options on the board right now. Um,
Dog, it's the first pick. How do you not have this ready to go?
I mean, I had so many. I didn't know I was getting the first pick. I assumed I would be getting second or third, but I'm going to take Field of Dreams as my movie. Great movie. Watching out for my dad. And who can forget the Field of Dreams MLB game? Came out of the cornfield, the White Sox and the Yankees. Finished it off with a Tim Anderson home run. Really electric game, electric movie together. No, you guys disagree? You don't like that pick?
I'm going with my first pick, Mike. I unmuted before Sam did, so I'm going to go for it. I think it's a fine pick, but you could do better. You had a bunch of time to prepare. It was your idea. So my first pick, I'm going to take a movie as well. I'm going to take what I thought was the most obvious first pick, which is Miracle on Ice. I don't know what else you'd pick for movie, and it's my choice.
This is a significant overstep by both of you. I'm taking
What did he say? I don't even know what he said.
Miracle on Ice. Are you kidding?
Miracle on Ice?
It's a great movie. It's just called Miracle.
It's not the second overall pick. It's even worse than Field of Dreams.
Wow. That's a take.
Field of Dreams is a great pick, by the way.
Okay, Mike, we don't need to self-proclaim our own picks. Let's let me go here. I'm going to take Rocky Balboa for my athlete and character.
Yeah, that's a good pick.
He's the American legend, man. I'm gonna swing it back around to me, and I'm going to take for my movie. I think that this is just a really underrated. I don't know if it's underrated, but it's a good movie. I'm gonna go Coach Carter. I love that movie.
Right on. Never heard of it, but sounds good.
What? All right, movie on your watch list, B.
All right. I'm putting it on there, Sam. All right. This movie's been a little bit controversial over the past couple of years.
Oh
But
boy.
if you've watched this movie and you've seen how Michael Orr plays offensive line, I mean, he is absolutely dominating out there. I know it's controversial, but you have to only separate the art from the artist. You look at the movie, you watch how he played offensive line. I don't know what your guys' takes on that, but he was unbelievable. I would not have wanted to be a defensive tackle going up against him.
Next pick, I'm going character. I'm in between two Adam Sandler characters right now, but I think I'm gonna take Scooter McGavin from Happy Gilmore. And then after that, I think I'm going to take team, and I'm taking the Flint Tropics from Semi-Pro.
Right on. Okay. Side character. You may argue that he is the head character, whatever it's called, but I'm gonna say he's not the main character. I'm gonna take Troy Bolton. Is he the main character? I don't think he is.
Can you even say that's a sports movie?
I'll give it to you.
I thought, okay, great. He gave it to me.
I'm contesting
That's
that.
all I needed. Nope. Sam gave it to me.
Brendan's pick is not going to go well with the audience, though, I will say. I will take with my next pick. Side characters was the one I had the toughest time finding. Just because it's a little tough. But I'm going to take my guy, Peter Brand, aka Jonah Hill, in Moneyball. I think he's a very solid character. I love like the nerd with like the old hardened like guy who sucked in the majors, Billy Bean. I just love that movie, so I'm gonna take that. And then for my last pick for teams, I'm gonna go major league team. The Cleveland blank wild thing, memorable. I mean, that's my favorite one. Probably my favorite sports movie. So I'm gonna go with that.
For my team, I'm gonna go with Metro City State College from 22 Dumb Street.
I'm definitely contesting that. That is not a sports movie.
Yeah, Brendan. No,
Brett, you got to pick a new team.
Wait. It's whoa. Yeah, it's not a sports movie, but there's sports that happen in the movie. I thought you just said that. Okay, I misunderstood it because I also picked Troy Bolton. I guess I don't know. Come on. Let me have Metro City State College.
Mike. There's no way he wins. Let's just.
Have you not noticed the theme of the things we've been picking? They're all from sports movies.
All right. Well, I take Chris Rock.
Already taken off the board.
Give him Metro City State College. We'll allow.
Okay, we'll give it.
Judge.
And this pick is absolutely going to break my board, but I am loving this for the troll. I'm taking LeBron James Space Jam 2.
Yeah,
the greatest of all time.
I knew it was going to happen. I knew it.
You knew it, yeah.
It's Michael House, man. We're not a visual pod, but he has the LeBron jersey in the back. I mean, I love LeBron, and Mike doubles it. So,
and I have it. So,
so that was our little draft. You can vote. We'll put up a poll. Please do let us know what some of your favorite sports movies are. All right, that was pretty good. Great way to come back, but we're missing one final thing. My favorite part of the ending of episodes, Terrific Terp. Mr. Brendan, go right ahead.
Here's what I'll say. You guys can probably tell that I'm not a movie fanatic, but I am a Terrific Terp fanatic. So let's get into it. So for this Terrific Terp, first one of 2024, I decided to turn back the clocks to the class of 1964. That's right, 60 years, and we're headed to the 1 and 3 meter diving board. Ron Squires was the first Maryland swimmer or diver to become an All-American. He attended Fork Union Military Academy near Charlottesville, Virginia, and came to College Park in 1960 when he was 16 years old. Squires joined the swimming and diving team and helped lead Maryland to an ACC championship in 1962. That same year, he won the ACC championship in the 1 meter and 3 meter diving. 2 years later, he was ACC champion in the exact same events. The year in between, he did not win the ACC championship, but instead won the 1 meter diving NCAA championship and was named an All-American. Following the 1964 season where he was a captain, he left Maryland and entered the U.S. Air Force pilot training program in the state of Arizona. He was pilot during the Vietnam War and had over 1,000 hours of combat time. He retired from the military in 1989, but stayed a pilot. If you happened to fly on a Boeing 767 on United Airlines between 1989 and 2003, well, there's a good chance that Squires was manning your airline. After retiring, he went on a sailing voyage around the world that was cut a little bit short because of Hurricane Ivan, and then he returned back to the air as a Boeing flight instructor working with pilots around the world. Squires started in the water, but spent his career in the air and will forever be in history as a season 4, episode 1, Terrific Terp.
Amazing once again. What a great way to start off the new season, Brendan.
Mike, did you happen to fly on a Boeing 767 before 2003?
No, and I wouldn't want to be flying on any Boeings right now either.
Good point. Well, Fellas, that was a great way to come back. We'll have episodes for you every Wednesday. A lot of great winter sports. We're in that time. Can't wait to be back with the fellas. So another great Under the Shell. We're back, season 4, baby. Let's keep it going. Have a good rest of your night.
Guess what? You've got Under the Shell podcast. Nobody does it better.